He Maori aho, ake ake, he tuhoi aho, mana motu hake, o kureo, he take take, he tuku iho.
Māori are descended from the gods, the ancestors, right down to the present day, and that connection connects them to the natural world. And the connection is held together and mediated by the forces of tapu and pono, the sanctity of the ancestors who owned the land, who sanctified it with their blood, with their bones that were buried in the urupā. But with the coming of the Pākehā, that tapu was displaced by a new kind of tapu, of Christianity, and that with the spirituality displaced, that enabled the severance of the connection with the whenua, that people were then driven to alienate the land once debts were forced.
Because you're magic, people tell me, you're magic, people.
They discovered us. We are the discovered people. In that benevolent narrative we're being sold. And they came to civilize us. These are the people, honestly, still burning witches at the stake at that point, and they're coming to civilize us. Very matriarchal societies in some places. We had our stuff sorted out. But here we go. So we have to understand the connection between why the thinking inside the Indigenous brain has been chipped away at so consciously. And in fact, now it happens in a way that people just accept a whole lot of the rhetoric without challenging it. Only free minds can think free thoughts. We must remove the colonial gaze and limitations and challenge false realities in the colonial fictions. Inside the colonial fictions, you will often see the clue to where our power base was and is and shall be. In terms of reclaiming the scope, we have to reclaim the width and the depth of our knowing. We're getting things fed to us in a way, and this is not just unique to Māoridom, to be frank. This has happened across the Indigenous world and across big populations of colour, where things are just diminished down to nothingness. So they say, well, your law is not law. This is why it's a pet peeve of mine. People that have heard me speak before will know it's a pet peeve, particularly when I hear it from our own. When you're talking about colonial law and tikanga, and they say, oh, but girl, what about the LORE? No, auntie. The LORE is a fiction created inside the colonial gaze to make you feel like you didn't have a legal system. So they've consigned you to a space of folklores and fairy tales. We're all dancing around the fireplace with the little daisy chain sort of necklaces, and we're doing kumbaya, a native version of kumbaya. That's what they're saying our tikanga is. The folklores and fairy tales. They won't say LAW when it comes to our law. Why? And then they say, oh, but we don't understand it. Of course you don't, because you're not from here. You are a foreign power. Just like if I landed in Beijing tomorrow, I wouldn't understand the law there. It would be my job to learn it. Not say, oh, actually, China, all of that's folklores and fairy tales. I'm just going to call that LORE and I'll do my own show over here. That's not an option available to people. So it's this denigration of our way of knowing ourselves. So you have this swap out from a complete legal system. It didn't exist the same way a British legal system did, and they couldn't recognize it, so they said it doesn't exist. It's LORE. You get this space where our oral tradition is myths and legends. We get taught the myths and legends of Maui when we're at school, but they're not the truth, because you go to social studies and you learn about that, where Captain Cook discovered us. That's the real history. And you get this wording that basically erodes all of our knowing of ourselves. And it says everything you are is lesser than what is real, which is us. And eventually, and so you get all of our rich mātauranga and say our stories of, and our histories of, say, Rongo Mai Wahine and Kahununu, you get that replaced with 3 blind mice and Humpty Dumpty, and swap out an Indigenous curriculum that has stood as the backbone of our people and our knowing for generations, so strong that we can't even find the end to it when we whakapapa back.
I think in essence, for me, the headline point, pre-European, 100 years ago and today, is the essence of learning by doing. Yeah. And learning by doing is, for me, the way. And I think what Te Whanau Aotearoa has provided through its educational philosophy is really an applied approach to learning, learning by doing, and the diverse ranges that we currently have available personify the learning by doing attitude. Hence the reason why, with the advent of programs like Mahi Ora, we cater for the audio, the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner, the written learner, the reading learner. So all the different learning styles really was a recognition of identifying the diverse realities of learners and to be able to provide diverse solutions to those diverse realities of learners.
One auntie told me that she would go to the bush with Granny so to collect rongoa, to collect leaves for that she would bring home, and it was to be used for certain sicknesses. And she said, well, we hardly talked because we had to climb up the hill, and they were right on the bush line of the mountain when they took these particular journeys. And she said, so I learnt about it by the hard way, by having to go there and do it, and getting lost in the bush, and then getting found again, and all those sorts of things. So we say whakarongo titiro, and then there's the kōrero, but maybe it's the mahi as well, that the learning is in the doing, and we all know that. And then the other thing that in oral histories that struck me was that the imagery that they presented me with, as this auntie said, I not only can, as I'm talking to you, she said, I not only can see us walking along the bush line, she said, I can feel the tiredness in my legs right now as I'm sitting here. And she said, and I can smell the plant of the leaves of the plant as we crush them, as my nanny said to me, smell this, know that smell. She said, I can still smell that smell right here as I'm sitting here talking to you.
My own mother and her family, and there were many women in the family, were all taught different things. My mother, for example, was taught how to plant food, and so I call that a form of whare wānanga. And it's the learning in the more, I suppose we could say, general learning of the word wānanga. They learned by doing, they learned by watching, and of course we were introduced to that as well, by learning, by listening, by watching and by doing, as opposed to the theory that we possibly have in today's wānanga and whare wānanga.
Just how good this scheme is shown by results. The boys have put up 8 good houses and have 8 more underway. Their work and training is helping to solve one of our biggest...
And what underpins the selection or the nomination of the children into the whare wānanga. And one of the things I would do is elders would sit and study children for a long, long period of time. Not like today, we lose patience and all sorts of things. Elders knew they were responsible to sit and really study and observe children, really look at them. And the question was, what is the mana that is naturally and organically emerging out of that child? That child, he ngā kaumahaki tō tēnā tamaiti. Kei te puare ngā taringa o tēnā tamaiti. He kakamati ngā whakaro o tēnā, kore take noiho nei, kare taringa. They'd sit there and observe and really think carefully about the mana that was naturally and organically manifesting in that child before any teaching has been done, before any kind of layering of things upon them has been done. The purpose is to see how te mana e puta Māori ana i te tamaitira. That's what is meant by an atua Māori, is organically and naturally comes forth and flows from the child. And then the elders would sit, ka noho ngā tohunga, ka noho ngā kaumātua, ki te whakawhiti whakaro, ki te wānanga. They'd sit and debate about, tēnā tamaiti, tatalandadam, tēnā tamaiti, so on and so forth, and debate as to what was the atua that was naturally manifesting in that child. And they would sit there and debate about that, and then they'd come to conclusion, tēnā tamaiti he mea, me tohi ki tēnā atua. And then they would commit them and dedicate them to the particular atua, and then they would be put into a learning program in the whare wānanga. That is, they would impart to them all the knowledge pertaining to that particular atua. Now, I think that that's a marvellous thing to do. As parents, of course, we naturally do that anyway. But I think what you see in our communities in the past, at least, was that this was a serious matter for our communities. Elders would take time to sit, men and women, elders, to take time to really study what is naturally and organically appearing out of the heart, out of the spirit of that child there. And then dedicating that child to a particular learning pathway according to that atuatanga that they believe was manifesting naturally in them. And that is such a different way of thinking about education when you think about our one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter education system that we have. Today, everybody has to go through the same learning and the same curricula. Everyone has to follow that. But more particularly, the paradigm is not to look at the inner person. The paradigm is not to do that. It's not to look at naturally where is this person at and so on. I'm sure there are teachers in the room that would disagree with me in that regard. But you can see the point. The point is to look at what is naturally occurring and coming out of that child.